Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiffany Rivera. I am the director for the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau, Department of Government Affairs. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening for our third installment of the Agricultural Congressional Forum that we are hosting. I want to take a moment to thank our supporting organizations, Dairy Farmers of America, Dairy Producers of New Mexico, Farm Credit of New Mexico Association of Conservation Districts, New Mexico Cattle Growers Association, the New Mexico Chili Association, and New Mexico Wool Growers Association for all of their help in coordinating tonight's forum. I would also like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Mr. Matt Martinez. Matt, I'm going to hand it over to you and take over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiffany, and welcome everyone. Hopefully everyone's having a great evening. My name is Matt Martinez, and I am the moderator for this evening. My wife, Martha, and myself both own a small business. We've got 4 radio stations up in Las Vegas and 1 here in Albuquerque. Politically, I've served 1 term as city councilor and 1 term as mayor in Las Vegas. And prior to that, spent 25 years in a whole other industry, the propane gas industry. The backdrop of where I'm at is actually the Plaza Mayor at the National Hispanic Cultural Center, of which I'm a member of the board. So glad to be here with you all tonight. Tonight, we've got our candidate running for Congressional District number 1, Michelle Garcia Holmes. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to her to do her introduction. Hold on, we don't have you unmuted yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
All right, well, thank you, Matt, and thank you to the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau and all of the sponsors tonight. I really appreciate you guys hosting this forum. I'm Michelle Garcia Holmes, and I'm running for the 1st Congressional District. And if you know anything about the Congressional District, it is a very large urban area, city of Albuquerque and part of Rio Rancho. I have part of Valencia County, Santa Fe County, the East Mountains, and then one of my favorite counties, I have Olive Torrance County. So I'm running to defeat Deb Haaland in November. That is my opponent. I want to tell you a little bit about my background. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, born and raised here, raised my 5 children here. And I served a career in law enforcement. I was a commissioned policewoman for 30 years. 20 of those years I spent with the Albuquerque Police Department, where I was a patrol officer and a detective and worked in violent crimes, retired out of crimes against children. I then worked with the New Mexico Attorney General's office under the King administration, where I worked for Gary King. I really enjoyed my career there. I worked 8 legislative sessions and worked on a lot of different initiatives. I worked on an anti-methamphetamine initiative. I helped pass the first human trafficking bill. I helped start the first statewide government corruption division. It was an exciting 8 years, and I really enjoyed it. I'm now retired, but I feel like I still have a lot more to offer to New Mexico. You know, we're on the list of 50th in everything good, and you know, I really feel like we need some big change. And we need change that's going to actually work across the aisle and work with others to try and get things done. For so long, we've been under far left liberal leadership, and I think it's just holding us back. And I see that we've just grown into this philosophy of not meeting in the middle, compromising. You know, when I went to get those anti-methamphetamine monies, I got those in Washington, D.C., and I worked with Domenici, I worked with Bingaman, you know, I worked with both sides of the aisle for New Mexico. And I just don't see a whole lot of that going on right now. And that's what prompted me to jump into this race. You know, in my urban area of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, we have high crime. We have drug trafficking, and we need to put a stop to these things. And we really can tackle those issues, and they really overflow to our rural areas as well. With I know I'm taking a lot of your time, Matt. I know you want to ask me some questions, so let's fire away. I just want to say one more thing. I'd really want to ask you for your vote if you really believe we need change in New Mexico, like what I'm talking about. So thank you. Thanks again for hosting us.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And folks, don't forget that the New Mexico Agricultural Forum that we're conducting tonight does not endorse candidates. We've invited all of the candidates to be with us, and we actually have one more forum scheduled for October the 14th at 6 p.m. Next week. So that'll wrap up all of the congressional districts and the Senate race. We'll start with our very first question to our candidate. Michelle, in times of critical drought, how can you ensure that water allotted to agriculture makes it to the state's farmers and ranchers? And how should water utilization be prioritized during this trying and limited time?
You know, what I always say is a deal is a deal. You know, our farmers and ranchers are supposed to get a certain amount of water, and it really troubles me when you know, people renege on that issue. It's really important to ensure that we have water going to our ranchers and our agricultural part of New Mexico that's supplying the food chain. You all supply the food chain. I mean, it's the food supply. So it's really important to make sure that those waters that are allotted, promises that have been made, we need to make sure that people follow through with that. We suffer because we live in a desert. So we really need to start thinking about other water resources that we can look into. And something I've been reading about lately is on the Navajo Nation, they're building a huge pipeline. And I don't know if any of you have had a chance to take a look at it, but you know, last year when I was doing a lot of traveling across the Navajo Nation, I was very curious because I saw this huge pipeline there, and it's really a water pipeline to supply, you know, that community. And we've got to start thinking about new ideas and start thinking outside the box. And I really want to make sure that we start thinking about a pipeline in New Mexico so that we can continue to have a water supply for our farmers and ranchers.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Next question. The Farm Bill is vitally important to New Mexico's farmers and ranchers. What are your thoughts regarding the preservation of beneficial programs within the bill, and how would you help your constituents take advantage of these resources that are often available but challenging to access?
You know, the red tape and the bureaucracy just really slows down progress. I truly believe that, you know, when someone says I'm from the federal government and I'm here to help, it's usually not the case. And bureaucratic red tape is tough to get through, but I'm one of these people that like to cut to the chase. I have tenacity, I have a lot of energy, and one of the things I'd like to do is sit down with you as soon as I'm elected, sit down with you and go over those problems that you've had, those specific problems that you've had in, you know, just being stifled from having access to the funds that would truly, truly help you. And let's sit down at the table and talk about it and tell me how I can help. because I'm one of those people, I worked in law enforcement for many years, and you get to a call and you get there because they need your help. And so I often find that when you have all the right people at the table and you sit down and you have a discussion, you get the proper information. So it helps you to cut through the red tape and make sure that people get what they need. And it just really makes it tough in New Mexico because we truly do face a lot of red tape in our business industry. I know in the state legislature, we've been working on tax reform and different bills, and they're not getting passed, and so it stifles a whole community when you just hit a wall and you have no one to talk to, no representation at the congressional level. It just makes it really, really tough. So my promise to you is that let's sit around the table, let's have an active discussion. You guys let me know where the problems are, and let's work on them together.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Next question. What is your opinion of how the Endangered Species Act is being administered here in New Mexico?
I've lived in New Mexico all my life. I want to share a story with you. This Endangered Species Act is a lot of times used as an excuse to prevent certain things from happening, and we all know that. When I was working at the Attorney General's office, I'd had a discussion with somebody about the silvery minnow, because growing up here as a kid, I had the best of both worlds. My family comes from the Santa Rosa, Las Vegas area. My great-great-grandfather had a ranch in Pastura. So I would spend summers out at the ranch and then come back and go to school here in Albuquerque. But, the silvery minnow, we used to always play in all the ditches. Don't judge me, but as kids, we play in the ditches and catch the minnows and whatnot. So I ended up having this discussion with one of our attorneys at the Attorney General's office, and I'm like, hey, the silvery minnow, like, seriously, is this an endangered species, or is this just something to go after, protect some other issue? And, our attorney had been working on this project for years. I'm sure a lot of you listening today remember, the silvery minnow and how it had that influence and whatnot. But he really gave me the honest truth. And those kind of things trouble me. Let's not make a political issue, out of our species. And once we find that a species is no longer endangered, let's cut to the chase and get it off the list. I mean, it's really costly to our farmers and people in agriculture when they face this issue and everything comes to a stop because of this endangered species. So, to delist these people or these species, let's get them off the list ASAP if we can. I think we need to streamline that process.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for that answer. And again, folks, we're visiting with Michelle Garcia Holmes, candidate for Congressional District Number 1. And for those who are already listening to this live, our audience, we'd like to ask that if you have a question that you'd like to ask the candidate, please post it on the Q&A part of the Zoom meeting, and we will try to get some of these questions to the candidate. Our very next question, back to our questions here. What should the United States do to change its immigration system? If elected, how do you see your office engaging on the issues of agricultural labor, ag guest worker program, and border security?
Well, I'm going to start with border security because I really, believe that we need to secure our border. Working in law enforcement all those years, I'm telling you, the things that come across that border aren't good for New Mexico, and especially when they come across illegally. We've got drug traffickers, human traffickers. Like I told you, I worked on passing the first human trafficking bill for the state of New Mexico. I believe we need to secure our border. I believe we need to have more checks at the border. I read an article a while back. We're not checking these vehicles that are coming into the United States as often as we should. And it's really egregious to see how many vehicles come across at a time that aren't being checked. And, you know, when it comes to immigration, you know, I truly believe, Mexicans have helped us build our country. You know, we've had so many workers come here. They keep your industry alive because they work in your farms and help. I think we need to streamline this process as well. We need full immigration reform, work visas. We need to streamline that process and do what's helpful for you. You know, at the same time, we need to make sure drug traffickers aren't coming across that border and the bad guys aren't coming across that border. But there are people who want to work in New Mexico. There are people who want to come and work on these farms. And we need to make that process easier, because I know a lot of farmers struggle during picking season and harvesting season with these issues. So that's another one I want to sit down with you. I don't claim to know everything about the farming industry, because, you know, I didn't grow up in the farming industry, but I do know that, you know, we need people to be coming across the border to help us in this industry.
Thank you very much. Next question. How important is the development of trade agreements to you? And what is your stance on the USMCA and how it is being implemented? Do you see any major challenges or issues with the new agreement?
Well, you know, our president has been trying to do fair trade agreements for America, and I really appreciate him doing that. Those fair trade agreements, I think we've been getting on the wrong end of the stick on those trade agreements, and I don't know why we have to end up losing money for America on those trade agreements. So one of the things I was discussing with a friend the other day, and I wrote some notes down because I was talking about the USMCA and the trade agreements. And one of the things that they had mentioned to me is that this trade agreement was very good for the dairy farmers. So I'm hoping that when these trade agreements come through and when they're done, that the congressional delegation and the president really pays attention to our rural community when it comes to these trade agreements, because anytime you change things up and you start to draft legislation, you have to realize there's a domino effect. You can't just focus on legislation that focuses on your big urban areas and then doesn't take care of your rural communities. So you know, I want to be a voice for our rural communities. I remember watching my great-great-grandfather and how hard, my family has worked in their ranching community. So, you know, we just need to be open to change and open the markets and for our farmers and our ranchers and see how it all goes. But I want to make sure that we're getting the better end of the bargain when it comes to those trade agreements.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And for the audience that's listening, you can submit a question down at the Q&A part of the Zoom chat line that's at the bottom. So if you have a question you'd like to ask of the candidate, please submit your questions. This one's coming from a participant already. Michelle, how do we address the urban encroachment on agriculture?
Well, that's a tough one, right? How do we do that? You know, I just, okay, so I know this at first I'm going to talk to you about a little something. We in politics, we have to get our signs up, right? When we have to go all across our communities and get our signs up. And I was in the Edgewood area, and on one side of the street, you see this beautiful farmland, and then you make a turn and you go to the other side of the street, and then there's a Walmart. So, you know, and then you look out and across the other side of the street, and then there's beautiful farmland. You know, we really have to think out things that we're going to do, and I think it takes good planning, a very good planning, well thought out planning when we're thinking about future development of various areas across our state, especially when we start to encroach into the rural areas, and think about the repercussions when you start to bring in, you know, a big box store or a store like Walmart, things like that. Of course, we want access in the rural community too. So it's a balance. And that's the issue. It's a balance. I think we approach these issues and look at them and definitely include all parties at the table. That's most important, because everybody needs to be heard from. Like I said, there's always a domino effect when there's any kind of legislation or any kind of change in a community. So it's really important to have everyone involved that's affected at the table.
Thank you very much. Another question from a viewer this evening wants to know, what do you think the largest opportunity is for New Mexico agriculture, and what do you see as our largest challenge?
I think our largest challenge is water. I mean, that's what we've always struggled with. You know, years ago, someone had the forethought to do the San Juan Chama project, and that just hasn't been enough, right? I mean, we have to really think outside the box, but water is definitely the largest challenge to our farming community and our you know, urban areas as well. I would like to see more conservation in our urban areas. I don't think we have enough conservation. And I think if we start to impose more conservation in our urban areas, you know, it might free up a lot more water for our farm areas. Yeah, definitely. That's one of our biggest challenges. And what was the other half of that question? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Let me go. What is the largest opportunity for New Mexico agriculture?
You know, we could really be expanding in this arena, in my opinion. I think we've had a lot of dependency on, you know, foreign dependency. And I kind of look at our gas and oil industry and things like that, and how we've become, you know, part in New Mexico who have helped to make America energy independent. And I want to really look at that in the other industries as well, and see where we can grow and where we can thrive, and really work on nurturing those industries so that, you know, our kids really need a future. And I kind of tie this into our kids, because we lose so many of our kids to out of state because there's more opportunity out of state than there is in state. But I'm thinking if we really put it in perspective and make a priority list and say, you know what, we're going to make it a priority for our farming areas to really try and get our families stronger in these areas, so that, I mean, our farming community is generational, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So by strengthening that community, you strengthen that family.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And the next question, a little bit about oil and gas. What do you think about the Green New Deal and the effects it would have on New Mexico dairy and cattle producers with methane rules, as well as the oil and gas industry?
You know, we've got to recognize that 39% of our revenue comes for education comes from the oil and gas industry, and we're failing at our education system. I believe in school choice, and we really have to start utilizing those monies properly. You know, school choice is always a better option, in my opinion, than government-run schools. You know, like I told you, the oil and gas industry is helping to keep America energy independent. I think we're number 3 on the ticker there for New Mexico in providing you know, oil and gas to America. And you know, we just need to let that industry thrive. You know, what holds us back in New Mexico is unreasonable regulation. You know, the methane rule, and oh, we've got to get rid of cows and this and that. That's just nonsense. I don't believe in the New Green Deal. I don't believe in or support the New Green Deal. I don't support the Energy Transition Act that went through this past legislature. And I definitely don't support the Keep It in the Ground Act, but my opponent does. She endorses all of those um, uh, legislative things that were passed that just are really bad for New Mexico and that would kill our industries.
Thank you very much. And again, folks, if you have a question you'd like to ask the candidate, just post it on the Q&A portion of the screen there on the Zoom conference call. Another question from another audience member: how can New Mexico take a more business-friendly, have a more business-friendly environment?
Oh, you know what? We have tried this and tried this at the legislative sessions over and over again. We need good tax reform. You know, we got good tax reform for manufacturing here in New Mexico. We're one of the best places to manufacture and export items, but we need tax reform. You know, we double tax our Social Security on our seniors. That needs to stop. You know, of course, that's the legislative level, at the state level. But what I think I could do in Congress is work on this double taxation on Social Security. We're one of the best places to live and retire. We've got beautiful weather. We have wonderful culture. We have excellent food. You know, this is a place where people can retire, but this is also a place that can just explode in you know, a lot of different industries. We have our labs here, we have our military bases, we have a lot of innovative ideas that come out of the labs. I would like to see those ideas stay here and entrepreneurs do startups so that we could really start to diversify our economy. But with all the regulation that gets passed through our legislature and things at the federal level that we have to deal with and the red tape we have to go through, it's time for a change. You know, it's time for a change. And I keep telling people, imagine a congressional delegation, because I know my fellow candidates that are running for office feel the same way. They think there's way too much regulation. And I think I can go that far to speak on their behalf, but imagine a congressional delegation with Mark Ronchetti, Michelle Garcia Holmes, Yvette Harrell, and Alexis Martinez Johnson. I mean, New Mexico would start to look differently overnight, because we are all fighters and we'll fight for New Mexico and work on all of these issues. But we're a great place to retire. We have great industry here. We need to help our entrepreneurs and just cut the red tape. I mean, that's probably the best way to say that. Regulation.
Have you had an opportunity to be in business?
I have not. I have little hobbies that I do. You know, I make jewelry, and I always wanted to open up a jewelry store. But you know what? God took me on another path. Once I retired, I started to get more involved in politics again, and I actually have contemplated opening up a business. But all of my best friends own businesses, and you know, we get together once a week and have discussions, and everything that I hear from them is, you know, just complaints about just all the regulations, all the hoops they have to jump through. It's very difficult to open up a business here. And it's very difficult to open up a business here under the present leadership that we have in place.
Thank you, Michelle. Another question from a participant this evening. Agriculture is increasingly under attack by extremist groups that want to do away with animal agriculture. How would you respond to these groups at the federal level to ensure our producers are able to feed and clothe our nation and the world?
You know, it's just a shame that these voices are being heard much louder than our, you know, cattle growers and our, you know, wool farmers. I mean, it just really troubles me every time I hear about, you know, the Sierra Club coming in, or like I told you, you know, someone trying to declare an animal in the Endangered Species Act. And, you know, I'm tired of things being utilized to shut down our industry in certain areas. It really bothers me. I mean, we used to have a thriving timber industry, and now we let our forests burn down because Sierra clubs come in and, you know, claiming spotted owl now, you know. I mean, there are better ways of doing things, and, you know, we need to fight back. We just need to fight back. We need to be the louder voice in the room. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, well, our farmers and ranchers are working very hard in their industry. They need someone who's going to be a voice for them in Washington and fight back against these things that would hinder their way of life and their industry.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And looks like we're getting towards the end of our forum here, but I did want to give you the opportunity for having a closing and final statement to our audience. And don't forget that not only will this be a live event, it will be archived so that people can go back and take a listen to the comments of tonight's Zoom forum. So
Great.
with that, I will turn it over to you for your closing comments.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Matt, for being the moderator. I guess we didn't have Deb here, so she's been skating out on a lot of debates lately. She canceled quite a few. But thank you for being the moderator, and thank everybody. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. You know, I'm really excited to be running for this office, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to be serving New Mexico. I have a lot of energy, I have a lot of tenacity, and I don't give up. That's one thing about me. I don't give up when I'm fighting for something. You know, I faced in my career a lot of closed doors from time to time, but I knocked on those doors. I got those doors open. That's how we worked to pass that first human trafficking bill. Being born and raised here, I think that I give a really good perspective of the way I was raised, you know. Going out to the ranch in the summers and hanging out, and then you know, participating you know, with my family and in various things that we needed to do at the ranch, mending fences, making sure the cows had water. You know, I was just a young kid, but you know, I saw the importance of it. You know, that helped feed our family, that kept our family, you know, we were able to pay for things. It's a really interesting life. And then serving here in New Mexico with the Albuquerque Police Department, I think I've had the best of both worlds. I love New Mexico. It's in my heart. I just want to continue to serve. You know, I hope you recognize that my opponent does not support the things that I think you all stand for. I ask for your support. I ask for your vote. I ask for your financial support. You know, these campaigns, we've got to get our message out to the voters, and I'd appreciate that. If you want to find out more about me, you can also go to my webpage. It's Garcia Holmes, #4, congress.com. You know, I want to support your industry because it's a precious part of New Mexico. You know, when I travel to rural New Mexico now and I go to Torrance County or I travel across the state, uh, you are the beauty of New Mexico. I actually get very excited when I see the cows out in the pasture, and you know, my husband laughs at me because I really get a kick out of it. And he's like, "Why do you get such a kick out of it?" And I said, "I know. It just reminds me of back, you know, when I was a young girl, and you know, we never forget those memories and things that happen in our life that make us who we are. That's part of what makes me who I am. And I'm a common sense oriented person. I want to serve in Congress so that I can get there and I can work on both sides of the aisle. You all heard from me. I worked for a Democrat. I worked for Gary King. I've worked on both sides of the aisle to get legislation passed. It wasn't easy getting that government corruption division started in New Mexico. We deal with a lot of government corruption. And I'll tell you, I had to pass other bills alongside that so that we could do some of the cases that we did. But I had the vigor and tenacity to go and meet with those legislators and sit outside their office. And I know a lot of you in the farm and ranching community have done the same, fighting for what you want. And it's not easy. And I commend you for doing it. But that's what I want to do in Congress. I want to be a voice for you. I want to meet with you after I'm elected. And let's get the job done so that your industry can thrive.
Thank you very much, Ms. Michelle Garcia Holmes, running for Congress, District #1. We want to thank you for spending your evening with us this evening and getting that important information out to those folks who are viewing this tonight. I also want to let everyone know that don't forget that the New Mexico agricultural community does not endorse candidates and has invited all the candidates to be with us in all of these forums. The next forum will be on the 14th, next Wednesday, with Representative Xochitl Torres Small. And on behalf of Chad Smith, the CEO of the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau, and Tiffany Rivera, I'm Matt Martinez. You all have a good night. And thank you very much, Michelle, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this.
Good night.
Bye-bye.